Welcome to the Black Paper. My name is Ndukwe Onoha.
And I'm chxta.
It's been an interesting few days, hasn't it, chxta?
What's more interesting than snow?
Well, I don't know. Is it snowing where you are? Because it's not snowing in Derby.
It is quite heavily so.
Are you kidding me? That's quite interesting. You should take a picture. You should send me a picture.
Let me send you one on WhatsApp right away.
That is quite interesting. But no,
you know what? I'm going to remove. I know our producer is going to be very unhappy, but I'm going to change my background picture to the picture of the snow this morning. One of the pictures, not the one that has the kids in, because then my wife will be unhappy.
I mean, who cares? Who cares what the producer thinks when you have your wife to answer to?
Exactly.
But just quickly, we wanted to talk about the Shabana Mahmood.
Your person.
Look, man, I'm not feeling all the love so much.
Our producers Utumopo is strong. Apparently, I can't change background while we're recording.
Now I think.
Okay, I'll just send you the picture.
I think Madam winked at the producer, and the producer knew what not to do. But it's quite interesting how the conversation has gone, and over the weekend we're wondering what we're going to talk about, and we're going through a number of topics, and I remember that there was going to be this announcement by the Home Secretary on Monday, and I was like, well, let's see if there's anything there.
Let's delay recording until that was your argument, which was quite inconvenient for me.
I apologize.
Still very inconvenient for me.
But turns out that there was a lot more meat to that. And so let's just, for those who don't know, Shabana Mahmood, who is the Home Secretary, has laid out the government's plan for tackling illegal immigration. Top amongst the proposals is that people will now have to wait. If people who arrive to the UK illegally will now have
asylum
to wait.
Seekers.
Asylum seekers, yeah, will have to wait 20 years before they can have the hope of getting any residency. But even then, their status is going to be checked every 2.5 years. And if the country from which they came is deemed to be safe during that period, you'll be put on a plane and deported. And then, of course, for one of the more controversial elements of this plan is that those who have assets those assets will be seized and used to pay for their upkeep. Now,
that particular part is a red herring, because
but a lot of people have said, while people said, oh my goodness, you're going to take people's rings and their heirlooms and things of sentimental value, she has come out to say no. There are people who are driving cars, and I think
you can see how deep my eyes are rolling into my head.
I think that was after the fact.
The country they're copying that from is Denmark. Denmark has had that particular clause in place for 6 years now. Guess how many times Denmark has seized assets in 6 years?
Well,
17 times.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. 17 times in 6 years means 3 a year, or almost 3 a year, for something that is, as in, considering the number of people who arrive, and I don't have off the top of my head the number of people that Denmark takes in. It's less than the UK, but considering the number of people, that's pretty small. So when you consider that, that this is a red herring, And for me, this whole thing is basically an F, and you can see that, and you will be in a position to better explain parliamentary procedures to our listeners. But it's so she has made the announcement, but it's not yet the law. They'll still have to vote on it in parliament. And the voting has to come after consultations.
Yeah.
So it's something that is at the very least a year away. Am I right so far?
Yeah, because
Now,
you will have to go to consultation. People will have to, speak to the
public input and all
constituency
of the good
and
stuff.
all that. And then, of course, there's the debates in the House.
Yes.
It will have to go to the Lords. If they find something that they don't want, or if they want to make an amendment,
as in
it
all
will
this
come
back
back to
and
the
forth.
House.
So it's kind of like the white paper that kicked off this podcast in the first place. It's still, I mean, I sat down to watch the parliamentary proceedings back in September, just when Parliament got back from recess, and it became clear to me that that white paper was not going to be passed in the form that chxta announced it. So this is pretty much the same thing. It's political rhetoric, but it's very instructive. The people who have come out in support of this, the Tories, and most importantly, reform. I mean, Richard Tice gave a major speech about it, and there are certain kinds of people who, when they come out in support of you, the least that you should do is take a look, pause and take a look and be like, am I doing something wrong? I mean, it's kind of like, to use the expression from back home, you get some kind of people where if they tell you good morning, check your watch. So it's that kind of situation. But hey, they've put it out there, and one thing, I think the key question that your people should be asking themselves, because let's not forget that you're a part of this government.
No. I'm not a part of the government. I'm a Labour councillor in Derby. The government.
Now the same papa born all of them.
Yes, so it's a Labour government in Westminster, but I'm in Derby.
Yeah, so but you're in Labour.
And sorry,
you're in Labour, and Labour is in government.
That sounds like me trying to distance myself from the party, doesn't it? No, but I was just being factual. When you say I'm a part of the government,
you're risking the whip being removed from you, so you had to correct yourself. Anyway, the bottom line is, when you have certain kinds of people supporting you, you should pause and take a look at yourself. Just as importantly, you have to ask, and it's interesting that it appears to me that let me be charitable to you, that the Labour Party in Westminster is not taking a look at, or the Labour cabinet in Westminster is not taking a look to see that all of these panicky announcements that they're doing, trying to out-reform, and trying to out-Farage, none of it is making a dent in Farage's support base.
In fact, if anything,
it's actually increasing his support base, and because it makes him look more authentic. At the end of the day, a natural human instinct is that people will always gravitate to what is more original. So if you want to pursue xenophobic, and this is me being charitable, if you want to pursue xenophobic policies, then people will be like, what the hell, let me go and meet the guys who are the proper xenophobes. So since we want to be xenophobic, let's be properly xenophobic.
I mean, to quote a famous Nigerian advert, if you know be Panadol,
enough be like Panadol.
And sadly, that is what we are seeing. Yesterday, or was it yesterday, or rather 2 days ago, Danny Kruger, who's a Reform MP, he defected from the Conservatives, stood up in the House of Commons and said, Shabana, it looked like Shabana was auditioning to join Reform, and then invited her to join Reform. I mean, we look at it and we can say, oh man, that's just bants and all. However, when as you said, when the Labour government suddenly starts looking like it's the entry level for reform, there's a problem. And to make it worse, if it wasn't already bad enough, you had Richard Yaxley Lennon, better known as Tommy Robinson, tweeting in support of this of this policy and saying, "Oh well, the Overton window has been shattered." And it's, for me, as a Labour, not just a Labour councillor, but as a Labour member, I just start. I'm a bit. It rubs me the wrong way that somehow you would have the only resistance you would have to a policy would be from parties on the left, because of course Zach Polanski of the Green Party has come out to condemn this in the strongest possible words. But from Kemi Badenoch,
The Lib Dems
to
have also condemned it.
the Lib Dem, okay, I have also condemned. But you have Kemi Badenoch saying, "Yeah, we will support you. You just didn't go far enough." You have Reform, what's his name, Nigel Farage, saying, "Oh well, we told you so. This was our idea. It's good to see that they're picking it up, and we will support them." And you have Tommy Robinson hailing you for doing this, and then you now look at some of the conversation online, and people are saying, finally, in Labour, a Labour politician, and these are right wing shatter groups. It makes you wonder if this has gone from blue Labour to turquoise Labour, and blue Labour is a term that has been used to describe those Labour members, or the wing of the Labour Party that is more conservative than socialist.
So
Yeah.
I think this thing is a general trend that has happened in Western politics over the last 30 years. What used to be the left so basically what used to be the left, as in the mainstream left, I think is the best way to put it. What used to be the mainstream left in Western politics is now, if we are to get into a time machine and take them 30 years, 40 years back, to the 80s, they will be classified as rights in the politics of that era. So essentially, the Overton window in politics has slowly shifted towards the right. And I think it bears an analysis, probably not in this program, but it's something that bears an analysis on how this happened. I think it was Reagan and Thatcher that did that. But again, that's another discussion. So the key things, the core policy changes are, number one, temporary status. Basically, the refugees will be shifted to a temporary permission to remain in the UK, which will be valid for 2.5 years. At the moment, it's 5 years, and it will be subject to review. Of course, we've talked about the prolonged path to settlements from 5 to 20 years. They are also removing the automatic rights to family reunion and imposing stricter.
And sorry, before you carry on, I think, to be honest, that has to be one of the cruelest.
Okay, cruel is a better word.
Cruelest parts of that thing, because think about it. Let's say, for lack of a better phrase, let's use a place we know very well. Let's look at Southern Kaduna. Now, let's say you are a politician, a Dadiata under an El Rufai, who was a governor. And sorry, for those who don't know, Dadiata was an activist, and sadly, I have to use because he's
been missing for more than 7 years.
Yeah,
about 7 years. So officially, he can be declared dead. Yes.
Yeah, who an activist, civil rights activist, who went missing for criticizing the then governor of Kaduna State in northern Nigeria, who's Malam Nasir El Rufai. Now, imagine you're a Dadiata criticizing El Rufai, who brooked no opposition and who showed that he had the capacity to use force against those he saw as enemies. And there was no place in Nigeria that was going to be safe enough for you. So you flee. You flee to the UK under, and the UK has now implemented these policies. And knowing that you can't be gotten, sadly, the next logical approach would be to go after your family. You're telling me that for the sins of speaking up against injustice, you would have to run and look after just yourself and your family. Well, God rest them, because we know where they're going to end up.
Well, second, there's a second bit to it, because they talked about the safe country reassessment, which is a part of the whole thing. So Nigeria, as an example, and I know that you, for example, bulk about talking about Nigeria a lot, but I want to use an example that is familiar to you. Nigeria is a huge country. For example, whenever I'm writing reports for clients or even public reports that SBM Intelligence publishes, I always tell my team, don't use the word nation to describe Nigeria. Nigeria is a country. Nigeria is a country that has at least 5 nations within it. Like so many African countries, it was cobbled together by colonial rulers, in this case the British, for their own ends. Now, within the country of Nigeria at the moment, there are at least 4 wars ongoing. Just if a couple of days ago, a brigadier general of the Nigerian army was killed by insurgents. But you see, people who live in Lagos, because this happened in a place called Damboa, which is at the other end of the country. If you say you want to drive from Lagos to Damboa these days, you're talking of 48 hours on the road. At a minimum. If you are flying, it's a 2-hour flight. So this is just for people to get an understanding of the scale of Nigeria as compared to Nigeria is roughly France and Germany put together. So you have that war that has been happening in that corner of Nigeria for 16 years now. And in Lagos, for people who are in Lagos all the time or regularly, it's very remote. It may well be on another planet. When you tell people, when you tell people in Lagos, in Asaba, there's a war in your country, they're like, no, it's not my lived existence. So when you have that kind of criteria, safe country reassessment, what is there to prevent some governments from saying, and the Dadieta/Stephen Kefansin cases, when El-Rufai was governor of Kaduna, come into play here, because as governor of Kaduna, he had Stephen Kefansin moved away, kidnapped essentially from Rivers State, which is also in Nigeria. Rivers State is in the very south, is in the far south of Nigeria. And Kaduna State, which El-Rufai was governor of, is at the other end of Nigeria. By road, it's about a 16-hour drive. By air, it's 1.5 hours. Again, I'm measuring the distances so people get an idea of the scale. Now, Stephen Kefansin he's still very much alive. At the time, was a major critic of El-Rufai. He's from southern Kaduna, a place that has been under consistent attacks by militants. And he was at the time based in Port Harcourt, which is in Rivers State, which is again an hour and a half by air from Kaduna. And El-Rufai was able to get him moved from there to prison in Kaduna. So this is just to give an idea, to illustrate that you could be in another part of the country. Powerful people can make things happen, but because your country has been declared safe, you will be moved back, and that is problematic. Now, the interesting thing is the British establishment has at least an institutional memory of that kind of thing, because they fought in the Cold War and they knew that someone who was behind the Iron Curtain and had earned Moscow's displeasure, it did not matter whether the person was in Budapest or Prague. Once he was behind the Iron Curtain, he was not safe. So they have that institutional memory. So this is flying in the face of what they know, because they're trying to play politics and feed right wingers. There's a reason why the ECHR, which all the right wingers want to leave, was signed.
Mm.
I think the difference now is the difference between when the ECHR was came up, which was in the early
That's
50s.
the European Court of Human Rights.
Yeah, the European Convention on Human Rights.
Convention, sorry, on human
The
rights. Yeah.
difference between then and now is that at the time that was a World War II period, the immediate aftermath of the Second World War, and the Cold War was just taking form. So most of the people who were refugees at the time were whites.
Mm.
So when you think of it that way, you cannot rule out the element of racism in all of this.
Mm.
ECHR is good as long as most of the refugees are whites. The moment you start having brown or black-skinned people, ECHR bad, we want to withdraw from ECHR and then become one of the very few countries in Europe that are not part of the ECHR, the other two being Russia and Belarus.
Although having been a major contributor and a very influential contributor
Churchill wrote it
to the,
more or less
to that convention.
Yeah, so it's and you don't get more conservative than Churchill. So when you are doing things that are flying in the face of your core principles, it's time to stop and look at yourself. But the truth of the matter is that things like racism are very, very they are very, very innate, and when people want to do that, play those kind of games, they suspend all reason.
And it's sad that all the things we balked about against because conservative governments have now become the policies of a Labour government. But you know what's even more ironic? The pictures of Shabana Mahmood protesting the treatment against the treatment of asylum seekers under a former conservative government.
There are so many ironies in the whole thing. I mean, if we want to talk about the leaked leadership challenge, that was not really a leadership challenge. I think we should actually talk about that because it's important to inform our target audience about our target audience needs to be consistently informed about UK politics so that we can get involved as much as we can. But that's hypocrisy, and the fact that and to my knowledge, you can correct me here. I don't think anybody has used a racial slur on the floor of the Commons the way Shamima Mahmood did the other day. I mean, even Rishi Sunak, when he was referring to the fact that he had been called that slur in the past, he just used the word P. He just said P word. Shamima Mahmood just went ahead and said the whole thing.
She said the fucking packy.
Yeah, when she said the whole thing, I was like, this is a woman after my heart. Because I have used swear words before on radio and was bleeped out, and used swear words. Even on this podcast, and our producer bleeped it out. So I still haven't forgiven her for that, but that's another matter.
No, but don't worry. I think in this instance, perhaps for the shock value, which was also what she went for, perhaps we won't bleep it out. Please don't bleep it out.
I would. You can. At the end of the day, I'm accusing her very clearly. She's partial to you, so I know that she won't bleep this one out now.
She's not a Labour member. That I can tell you.
No, I know she's not, but.
But on that note, chxta, let's go for a quick break, and when we return, we'll talk about the wider implications of this.
No hala.
Welcome back to the Black Paper. My name is Ndukwe Onoha.
And I'm chxta Wanze.
So we've been talking about the interesting policy direction that the Labour government is going in now. It's for those who might have wondered, it's no news anymore, or you can't contemplate anymore whether this Labour administration is, when it comes to the question of immigration, whether it's taking its talking points from reform or not. Sadly, with these
it is taking its talking points from reform because
with these policies, they are.
Sorry to listen. Here's the basic problem. Politicians nowadays And this is, my boss is not going to like what I'm about to say. One of the things that my organization, SBM Intelligence, does is polling. We do it in West Africa. We get, as far as elections approach, we get a lot of requests from politicians. So polling is not as ingrained in the DNA in West Africa as it is here. Politicians here are always looking at polls. Now, the problem with polls is that polls inform a short-term world view. And you can see that that's what, so the political class in this part of the world, in the Western world, now thinks only in election cycles. They don't think long term. So all of these actions are as a result of polling. So from someone like me who likes to think as a long-term thinker, I can tell you that reform has peaked. That's my considered position. Reform has peaked. And if the Labour Party, if the chxta government, or if West Streeting somehow succeeds him, given that chxta, that's one of the things that chxta and his menagerie are afraid of, if they can hold the line and stand on the proper business, reform will not be able to beat them in the next election. The next election is still 4 years away. They need to be able to hold the line and stand on the business, but they're not doing that. Now, if they get weak or they get silly and they call an election today, reform will win. And Britain will be worse for it, because one thing that has been made very clear in places like Kent, in places like Cornwall, is that reform cannot run a government. And at the end of the day, you can see some similar
even in the
in the northeast,
in the county council here in Derbyshire, where they were like, oh, we're going to reduce your council tax. Now they're taking it up to the highest level allowed. The reform is all talk.
Yes,
all provocation.
There are people who, and it's a lesson that we have learned bitterly in Nigeria, as an example. There are certain political groups of people who, in reality, all they exist for is to stand on the sidelines and throw stones. The moment you give them the pen to run things, they will fall apart. But what is worse is that usually, again, that's Nigerian expression. You can give the koboko to the Christmas, but you cannot take it away from him. So
koboko is a cane, the whipping cane, or the whip.
Okay, the whip, yes. So that's one of the key risks that the United Kingdom is facing now. Reform has shown very clearly, especially Kent. People should look at Kent very closely, especially with Kent. There was that leaked video conference call where that devolved into all of them abusing each other and all the like. So you need to be able to look very closely at the structure of reform. Reform is an SPV that's set up specifically for the purpose of taking power, which is for the purpose of campaigning.
It's still a limited company, isn't it?
It's still a limited company. So it's very top-down in that respect. But that kind of top-down thing does not work in governance. It's great for campaigning because you are nimble on your feet. You can make quick decisions. You can throw stones. You understand? There's a franchise model where people are free to throw stones in their local manner the way it will hurt. But when you get into governance, where you have to collaborate, you have to work with people, you have to make compromises, it falls apart very quickly.
And to add to that, to the need for labor to hold its nerves, I'll also say there needs to start being a moral argument being made. There needs to be a case for the why, not just for the what. Since the general elections, there has been a conversation around the what. This is what we're doing. This is what we have done. This is the biggest. This is the greatest. This is the widest. All those things, yes. However, the question is why? What is the use of you? What we have seen from Zach Polanski, for instance, who is the leader of the Green Party, is him setting out his moral case there's a need to bring hope back. There's a need, and we're going to do either the wealth tax or whatever, because at the end of the day, we are a party that wants to give hope to the electorate, and that is what he has been canvassing on. And for a party that was seen to be on the fringe of election, the Greens have been able to win 2 by-elections, and sadly, they've won from Labour. Council elections,
Why
I must
okay,
add.
well, you say sadly. You will say sadly because Labour are your people.
I'm a Labour Party member. I still believe in the Labour Party and will continue to campaign and canvass for it.
I'm not constrained by such petty. If I were
However, sorry.
Okay,
but however, the belief will also need to be rewarded with a clear message, and that is what is lacking. To reform has lost either through resignation, suspensions, or just being booted out. They've lost about 36 councillors.
Yes.
So in a short span,
short is the wrong word. In a minuscule span, basically in those places they came into power this year.
Yes.
And before the end of the year, they're falling apart. That tells you even APC in Nigeria did not have that record.
And even in Parliament, they've had a revolving door, as it seems, of MPs. So reform is a rabble-rousing house designed to cater to one man's ego, and that is Nigel Farage. If you are Zia Yusuf, for instance, and you can't massage that ego well enough, you're kicked out, although you're allowed to say that you resigned, and then you're brought back because you've gone back on your knees and kissed someone's derriere. If you're Richard Tice, you're constantly reminded that you're not good enough, quite good enough to be chancellor or leader, but just go and talk. But if you're, what's the name of that guy that has suddenly thought, what, screw it, I'm going to go to the deep end of Rupert Lowe. You're kicked out because somehow you have enough money and clout to fight Farage. So it's a collection of
I actually like him.
Okay.
No, for a very simple reason.
Why?
He's plain and transparent. He wears his racism on his sleeve. So you can see it from a distance. You don't have to start trying to. I would say that Farage is a racist, but he goes a distance to try to pretend he's not, so that he will look good. And Petno does not bother, and I respect that.
So maybe respect his racism. Well,
my apologies. English is not my first language.
Yeah, respect his forthrightness rather than Farage, who will act as if he has nothing to do with it. Tommy Robinson. Meanwhile, we know that Tommy Robinson is the personal leader of his own brand of brown shirts.
Precisely.
But it's look, it's what it is. Sadly, the Labour Party is lurching more and more to the right, but there's still time to reconsider. And as I said,
to set out right for a long time.
Yeah, but more than it does need to set out a moral argument for why we exist as a movement. And for those who are listening to us, one thing must be said. If I know I keep saying it, and I've been saying, and I'll continue to say it. One of the beautiful things about the democracy here is that you can engage with your representatives, and if there are issues that you feel that because I know a lot of our listeners voted for this Labour government. If there are things that you feel are uncomfortable for you, especially to see from a Labour government, I would encourage you, in your own words, however you do it, please send a message to your representatives, send a message to your councillors, who can escalate to your MPs if you want. Send a message to your MPs, but just say to them, look, this is not what we elected you to do. But that is not to say that there is no need to take control of immigration. Of course, there's a need to take control of immigration. The question is, how do you do it? How do you set out that argument? And borrowing from a policy that says that people's personal effects might be seized, even though it's been rolled back now and denied, it's not a good look. Not understanding that even as a country, there are implications for why the refugee crisis has gone up, especially when you look at things like supporting the disastrous war, or in fact, not even a war, bombardment of Gaza, involvement in places like Libya, which open up a whole new refugee corridor. Supporting international campaigns that destabilize other countries would ultimately chart a route back to yours. And that also means things like refusing to call out stolen elections in places like Nigeria, in Tanzania, where you're seeing despots taking over
for the
the reins
record,
of power.
they've called, well, not officially, but people in this part of the world have called out the elections in Tanzania. They haven't called out one in Cameroon or Cote d'Ivoire.
But in needs, there needs to be an official, because you can draw a line between
Of course,
when
you can draw a
despots
line, but
take over and people start
so the
fleeing their
thing is,
country.
again, the thing is, I'll keep going back to what I keep saying. A fundamental problem with Western powers now is that they have people who only look at the short term. So, as an example, Libya, I will go so far as to say that if the whole Libya thing had somehow, if we could dial the clock back to the time of
Muammar Gaddafi?
no, before no, of course Gaddafi was on the throne at the time, but I'm talking of in the West. I do not think that Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan and Francois Mitterrand, who were there in power at the time, would have just bombed Libya and walked from the air and walked away, knowing the knock-on destabilizing effects that such a thing would lead. But what we have now is people who are just concerned with how it looks on CNN. So for example, you have President Trump talking about Venezuela, and they're talking about Nigeria and saying, "Oh, we're going fast."
He's lost interest already.
No, he's lost interest. But I did tell you then that he will lose interest in the Nigeria thing. The point is, the political class these days like what looks good on TV. So going fast, drop a lot of bombs, make some noise. It looks like Hollywood. So I think a part of the problem is that
they moved to TikTok
a generation now who grew up on Hollywood. Think about it. A lot of the decision makers now were in their early 20s, during the 80s, when movies like Still Justice, Chuck Norris, Steven Seagal were all the rage. So
Rambo.
They are actually Rambo. Thank you for that, Rambo. So they're actually running global politics like it's Rambo. And that's a problem.
Yeah. I think which is part of setting out that moral case. I would have loved to see a Labour government that would say, look, part of the reason why there's a lot of people trying to flee their countries is because internationally, the foreign policies have made it so that a lot of their countries are not safe for them. So this is what we're going to do.
Since the producer can grant you amnesty, I would demand. See, basically, you've had international policies that have made a lot of countries fucked up.
Okay, well, so yeah, I'm not sure that's going to be bleeped up. So, all right, so if I was a foreign secretary,
listeners, you see, just so that people will know, on this podcast, there's a constant 2-to-1. I'm always losing I'm saying it's unfair.
But it hasn't been bleeped out now, I think.
The point is, because you did it, it will not be bleeped out.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
No, but if I was a foreign secretary, which clearly I'm not, I would make out a case for stopping the fish rotting from the head, which is to say, if you're a country where you're making life untenable for your citizens, in order to make sure that they don't start coming here, we will start putting sanctions on your leadership. I mean, look at for the brief moment when Trump had his interest in Nigeria, suddenly everyone woke up. Nobody wanted their visas to be banned. Nobody, you had people running around saying, "No, look at what we're doing. We're look at helicopters
I
flying."
wrote a piece on it, and that has been the track that I have pursued in my engagement with the issue on social media.
Yeah.
Basically, the whole Trump Christian genocide thing shows precisely the kind of elites that Nigeria has.
Yeah.
They were only interested as long as their own positions were threatened. Now that it appears that threat is easing away, it's back. So
back to
here we
formation.
have, on the same day that 25 schoolgirls were kidnapped in Kebbi State and a general was killed by Islamist insurgents, we had the vice president going to Kogi State to do party reception. We had people doing politics in Wadata Plaza and all of that stuff. So that is the fundamental problem. Essentially, where I would maybe that's not where I'll close out, because I want to talk about something. So my closing statement, I'll talk about David Miliband. Sorry, but the point is,
talk about Nigeria crashing out of the World Cup.
I've gotten over that. So, I mean, I think we're both in that nice place where we have two countries that we can support. And England now, for those of you who are native English, I'm sure you know, England is the country that everybody loves to hate in football. But suddenly I find that I will be supporting England in the next World Cup. And it's an easier pill to swallow now, because there are quite a number of Nigerian descent. I mean, Iberichi is the Bukayo Saka. So we have quite, and there's one other young chap that's in Arsenal, Waniri. So we have some young Nigerian descent boys. They're English now, but we have some young Nigerian descent boys that are playing for England. So I can swallow that.
Another team that I find a lot of us supporting is France.
Nope. I ain't supporting France. Nope.
I'll tell you why. Because when you look at them,
if I ever get to meet Michael Olise, I'll bitch slap him. I say, why France? He could have played for England. He could have played for Nigeria. He could have played for Algeria. He had other choices. Why France? So no.
Oh, okay. But when you look at the French national team, you're like, is that not my bro? Is that not chxta's cousin there? That's why a lot of people are like, you know what? Let's go for the team that looks like us. But anyway, sorry.
Well, I'm talking of the flag, that the colors that they're flying.
Sorry, I derailed you from with the talk of football.
Why do you know? We could have this podcast for the next 5 hours. I'm just talking about football. so I mean,
no, it should just be you talking, because you know me, I'm not a football person, so it would just be you talking and me just nodding.
How did I meet you? How can you not be a football person? What's wrong with you?
Nah, look, man. The extent of my football involvement was when my wife used to be a very strong supporter of Man U. So whichever team was playing against Man U, I'll support them just to piss her off.
Now you sound like my mom. So, there are 4 teams that I support. Sorry, make that 5. 5 teams that I support, of course, to varying degrees. There's Bended Insurance, because I grew up in Benin. There's Juventus. Long story, but my support started during Heysel. That was 40 years ago now. There's Eimba. Of course, Abumoyebo.
Enyimba of Aba. I was born and bred in Aba, so Enyimba is our team.
There's Deportivo La Coruña, again another complicated story, and then there's Baba Eagles. It looks like we're about to. We can't call them Super Eagles anymore. They are Papa Eagles, because if you have seen the match,
just call them
Baba
Eagles.
There's no Baba Eagles. There's a reason why we call them Baba. Because if you had seen the match against Congo, they played like geriatrics. So that's Baba. It looks like I'm about to add a 6th, which is the 3 Lions, but that's another discussion for another day.
No, let me recommend the Rams, Derby County. Come on, you Rams.
God forbid, Bate.
But you know what? See, please, Mr. Producer, bleep every single thing that Cheta has said on the bleep, not just the swear
God
words. Bleep
forbid
everything.
bad thing. As in Dabi. Anyway, a famous Nigerian player, Taribo West, played for them once upon a time. But Derby has the record for the fastest relegation in the English Premiership.
We
So
don't care. We love Derby.
that's the nonsense you support. Anyway, where was I? You've
We're
derailed
going
me
to
with
talk about.
football.
Sorry, you're going to talk about Dave. No, but before Miliband. Oh God.
Well, we're almost out of time, so let me as well
Anyway.
round up. So David Miliband, former foreign secretary, was on Andrew Marr's show the other day, and he pointed out something which I have pointed out before, but using Dominic Raab as the example. But David Miliband, his parents were refugees. So the UK has a history of allowing refugees and those refugees going on to thrive. There's no reason for that to change now. And if that is changing, if the UK is becoming more hostile to refugees, there's only one reason: racism.
Yeah. On that note, Cheta, we'll draw a curtain on this episode, and see you at the next one.
See you next time.